How do you know it's 20 seconds? Okay, I believe we're live now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. On behalf of Beacon House, it's my pleasure to welcome you once again to the 12th edition of SOT events. As some of you may know, SOT event started in the year 2000 and on the 25th anniversary of Beacon House. And they're part of our journey to understand the future of learning, the future of education, indeed, the future of schools and societies globally. We are very honored to have here with us Miss Rosan Bosch, who is the founder of Rosan Bosch Studios in Denmark, in Copenhagen. Roseanne is an internationally renowned architect who is known for her innovative design of future learning spaces. She's worked with private as well as public education organizations all over the world. She worked with the Vitra schools in Sweden, with the award-winning Sheikh Zayed Private Academy in Abu Dhabi, Ministry of Education in Argentina. She's frequently a keynote speaker at leading education events around the world. She was a keynote speaker at the International Baccalaureates conference last year. So very pleased to have her with us. But I'm personally doubly pleased because Roseanne is also working with us to design or has designed the upcoming campus of TNS Beacon House in Gulberg in Lahore, Pakistan. And what we've requested Roseanne to do today is to take all of us through that particular project, because we feel that it's a case study for what a school of tomorrow ought to be like. And so without further ado, I'm going to request her to begin the presentation. This will be followed by some question and answers, if you have any. So if you're on the SOT events website, you can ask a question directly by pressing the Ask a Question button. Otherwise, on Facebook Live or YouTube, please type them in as comments, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Finally, Roseanne, before I turn to you, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our lead sponsor, which is UBL Bank in Pakistan. Without their support, it would not be possible for us to organize conferences like these. So we are really very grateful. And over to you. And thanks again for being here with us. I think that I will now disappear into a small box while you're speaking.
Thank you so much, Kasim. And I'm also really, really pleased to be able to present to you this project and to tell you a little bit about my thoughts, but also our thoughts, because as the public might not know, we've had a lot of conversations about the future of tomorrow, the future of education, and actually the future of our children. I'm going to share my screen because I have a lot of images to show to you, as this, of course, contains architecture and design. So
Right.
I hope you can see my screen. At this moment, you should be able to see my screen and the new TNS School for the Future. Is that correct? Can you please confirm? Because I cannot see myself. So can you
Yes,
please confirm?
absolutely. We can see you as well as the presentation.
Good, very well. Well, you know, I am really, really pleased to be sharing with you our ideas and our design of the new TNS School for the Future. First of all, I would like to start with a phrase which I often use in my talks, which is designing for a new world starts at school. Why do I start with that? It's because I truly believe that our schools reflect the way we see ourselves as humankind, as people, but also reflect our societies. So if we create the best possible learning environment for our children, they might grow even bigger and more developed as ourselves and might be able to create a better world. So this is just an introduction slide from our studio, because as you said earlier, I'm the founder and creative director of Rosan Bosch Studio. And these are just some images of the many, many learning environments we create all around the world. And what they have in common is that they are severely different, because we believe that a true learning environment should not be what a traditional school looks like. We believe that the physical environment has a huge impact on how we act or interact with each other, but also emotionally, how we feel when we are in these spaces. And that actually this physical environment is a tool for us, a tool for changing maybe the way we interact with each other and work together, but also the way we feel and see what learning is all about. Now, I think that what we have been doing with our studio and what I have been doing for now over 20 years is always saying that learning could be so much more. And, some people say yes, some people doubt. But now with the pandemic, we've got this like huge kind of confirmation, because everybody realized it, that the skills that we said and we are saying are most important to develop in school, for example, the skill of being creative and being able to activate and use your potential in different ways, that this skill of being creative is so important. We all had the experience, the entire world globally. We've all had the experience that we needed to be creative and improvise in order to kind of move on and make our world function. So now suddenly we have this kind of global acceptance in a way of that why and what we are supposed to do at school has changed from kind of thinking of school as, a thing that where you go and your little bucket and you just fill it up, to a place where you develop skills that actually allow you to use this knowledge in many different ways. In the creative ways, collaborating with each other, working together, also developing high developed social and emotional skills, and the skill to improvise. Now, in order to do so, to create a learning environment where you learn active skills, the learners, the children, should be empowered. And you are empowered when you're motivated. Actually, it's a great feeling when you grow as a human being, when you learn, not only for children, by the way, also for adults. And an important part of all our designs, and which I think all good schools should realize, is that we do not only learn with our mind. I don't know when this kind of, appeared, this idea that you could just sit still and you should be this kind of little mind that receives things and then you develop by listening and doing as you're told. No, we really grow, we really learn when we interact and we try out and we investigate, when we use both our mind and our bodies. So what is it we do? Well, we try to create learning environments, which are not only physical, by the way, but also digital, that create an awareness and in a way give the most prestigious gift to our children, that we learn them how to learn so they can continue developing themselves during their whole life. So now I would like to tell you about the TNS Beacon House 2.0, the School of the Future. First of all, when I started to talk to Kasim, we realized that we were talking to an organization that has already a large, huge track record of innovation in education. Coming from Montessori, today they work with Reggio Emilia, with project-based learning, and this kind of, approach to learning in that sense was very similar to what we also were working with. So this was a great connection. And then we said, okay, let's start working together and create this school of tomorrow, an environment that maximizes the learning potential of our students. So first of all, we said, okay, how to do that? How to create, in a way, instead of seeing learning as this container kind of filling up, as more like a training facility for your skills and knowledge to become the best possible version of yourself. Well, we started with thinking that of creating a learning landscape instead of a traditional school building, which in a way is an instrument of control. So these learning landscapes could exist out of different learning situations. Oh, I can see my slide is broken here. Well, I'll just do it on a talking way because the images are missing. I don't know why. Here they are. Okay, well, I will just tell you about them. The first principle we call the mountaintop, which are actually learning situations when you receive a short brief, a short instruction, or you give one. The second one, which is unfortunately missing its images, but it's a beautiful one, we call the cave. And cave situations are situations where you learn how to concentrate, to focus, typically because you're alone. And then we have the third situation, which are campfire situations. Situations where you meet in small teams, where you actually develop your collaborative skills, also taking responsibility for the outcome of your whole group, of your whole team. Then the fourth learning situation we call the watering hole. These are places where you actually get inspired because you suddenly hear something or you see things from others. This informal kind of exchange of knowledge. Maybe not what you had intended to hear, but it also creates a kind of continuous development layer all over the campus. And then again, sorry about the photos, but I'll have a lot more to come later. Then the next one, which is hands-on, which is learning actually using your hands, experimenting, building maybe, mathematical models, and movement, which is actually activating your body to activate your brain. Now, these 6 different learning typologies allow us for creating a new spatial strategy where we combine design, pedagogy, and organization in one, fostering a new culture, a new way of thinking of learning. And this ties perfectly together with the vision we have for TNS Beacon House 2.0, a vision where we take the Reggio Emilia principles with the arts, with the hands-on learning, and the central piazza, and together with project-based learning, where we work with 21st century skills, where we have also, actually an emergent way of working with project-based learning, and where everything is about product solving, trying, iteration, actually having almost a design thinking embedded in the way we work, motivating students. Now, combined with this differentiated learning environment with all the different spaces, there is another element I would just like to introduce before I go over to the nice photos. What we call progressive development. If we want our children to actually all the time grow as much as possible, they have to have the possibility to challenge themselves over and over again. Children need to go discover the world, but they also need to feel safe. So from this safe basis, you start, wandering around further and further and further. And if schools are not the place where you can go and discover the world in a safe context, where else should that be? This should be the place where you can actually allow to try out things and fail and then try out and fail even better. Yeah. So in order to not limit any children in their progressive development, a school should actually be flexible, because not all children follow the same pace of challenging. This is something that has resulted for us in what we call a village-based organization. That means that instead of having a classroom where we kind of, one fits all kind of model, where we all put children in a little box, 30, sitting down with one teacher doing actually more or less the same activity at the same time, we have a village-based organization where children have their home base, but they also have spaces they can flow down to, and they can actually work in a differentiated way, because all children are different. Now, what you're seeing here is a little diagram that shows that this evolves over time, because small children need, in a way, for feeling safe and secure, more time spent in their own kind of private space. But the older they get, the more time they spend using shared spaces and into common spaces which are shared with the whole school. So when you're an architect and you're kind of creating a village-based school, you start to kind of map this in different ways. And then we ended up with a kind of organizational model of a school where you have these villages surrounding this huge piazza coming from the Reggio Emilia idea, where you can share experiences and where you can experiment. So in a way, the core of the school is this like super alive, inspiring piazza. This is what we call the spiral of growth. And this ties perfectly in to another element so important, because the way we learn is basically the same way as we play. It's based on our natural born curiosity. All children are born curious. A little child of 2 years is this machine of learning, touching, interacting, iterating with the world. And then it starts to, on the basis of it's inspiration to wonder and explore. And this exploration, and when you're discovering things, you start to think, okay, how does this actually taste? It sort of tastes like chicken, and you relate it to what you already know. And then with this knowledge, you create something new. This is what we call the discovery path. So we have the spiral of growth that allows children to take responsibility for their own learning, developing more and more and more territory if they want to, always going after the maximum potential. And in the same time, we work with this curiosity DNA, creating all these exciting possibilities to discover and explore. Now, I would like to start to talk to you about the overall concept in building design. So we have, first of all, here a site analysis. That's what you do when you create a new school. You look at the site. Now here on the left side, this is a bit like made nice illustration, but here we have our little plot. Now, this is a bustling urban setting. This is not a school on the rolling hills. This is in the middle of Lahore. Now, the next thing we looked at was the sun. We have a very one could say harsh climate with either heat, we have a lot of wind, we have a lot of dust, and we also have, the need of, as you can see on the other one, the entrances. We have two roads. Well, this is the main road, and we would like to kind of create maybe a bit more calm and smaller entrance for the smallest children. And then we have a plot where there's a lot of limitations because of local regulations that actually allow us, they give us some limitations. So we started to look at these limitations and what we want. And we said, okay, we have an urban environment. This is not Lahore, by the way. It's just a photo to illustrate urban environment. Yeah. But we also have, this natural curiosity of children. We want to foster. We want to create this school that can't hardly be more exciting to go to. And we want to create this stepping stone feeling where you always like, oh, what's next? What next? Where children can act on their natural discovery wish. And we want to give them an environment where they can interact and engage with all these hands-on experiences that really, boost their development. And therefore, we say, okay, maybe we should, from an architectural point of view, really start to look at this idea of a growing spiral, like literally a spiral surrounding a core, a piazza. And then maybe we could create, a grid. What about creating a school which is actually extremely flexible, because the building allows us also to evolve in the future. And then we would like to kind of protect ourselves from this strong sun and wind and dust, and also the urban bustling surrounding it, maybe giving the school kind of a skin that gives a beautiful play with light and a lightness, but also protection. And then maybe we should look in creating good terraces where you are protected, but you can still be outside and have this connection with green, because we need the connection with the outdoor. So we said, okay, we have the spiral. We add to this idea of the growing spiral a grid that allows for future flexibility and experimentation, also for the school. We have a skin, surrounding the building, protecting it from the outside. And we have access to the green, which gives us, I give to you, TNS, Beacon House of the Future. A school which has a huge spiral as the core of its building, surrounded by a skin allowing for playful light breaking through the facade, creating a protection, but at the same time also a play and a sensuality or kind of a beauty to the space. And then permeating it with wherever we can with terraces and outdoor spaces, so you always can break into an open green environment, inviting to the surrounding, but also kind of creating a protected learning environment where you, in a safe way, can always challenge yourself and develop a hands-on learning. With our beautiful, huge spiral in the core of the school, from which students can float out into this different, experiencing learning spaces surrounding our spiral of growth. Not being limited because somebody tells them that, hey, you have to be this amount of minutes in this particular room. If they can grow and they can capture more, they can go and they can learn more. So for example, surrounding our spiral, we have our library with different learning environments. Now, there's another element I really would like to share with you, because this is something I'm very passionate about. And this is what I call learning through nature. This is seen from me as a point of architecture. I believe that when we create buildings, the way we have created schools for a very long time, our school buildings are based on this kind of rigid model of organization. But I think that instead of thinking in, kind of the industrial way about the building of architecture, I believe that our buildings should actually relate to our body as we are as human beings. And when we are in nature, we react very intuitive on, the surrounding. For example, we see a flower and the flower attracts us with its color or its smell or its beauty. Or we see a tree and we want to then sit underneath a tree because we feel more, protected. Or we see a small hill and we want to run up to the hill and we feel stimulated to start running. So this kind of intuitive way of reacting to the things that surround us that comes from nature, we try to take and use it for creating a live kind of interior design of the school that allows for this intuitive way of acting and reacting, creating a truly beauty. So this school is in Lahore. We think that Pakistan has an amazing landscape. So we started to think to link, in a way, the landscape of Pakistan to our idea of the growing spiral. And we said, okay, what if the school, where the youngest, of course, are in the base or in the ground floor, where they have direct access to outdoor environments, what if the school actually kind of allowed you to kind of travel through the different landscapes of Pakistan, creating an entire interior design, which was not just, kind of rigid, like with small squares and corridors and chairs and tables. No, that actually allowed you to have a whole different sensation and experience. So we said, okay, let's make the lower levels, like, for example, the rivers from Punjab, where you have the Indus River basin and where you have the green and the very fertile lands. And then when you move higher up, we relate it to Balochistan, but also the coast, the cliffs breaking with the water and the small valleys where you can find water. And then when you move all the way up, we go to the northern highlands, and here, well, the landscape gets dramatic, beautiful, but also very hard to conquer. Here we have the science labs, but we also have, for example, a base camp for the older students to hang out and to be a bit social with each other. And we have, on the top, on our rooftop, of course, we have a climbing wall inspired by K2. So this allowed us for creating, a kind of a experience sense in the landscape following the building. And here we see a space planning which kind of exposes the spaces, because we could not use the traditional architecture because we don't have corridors and classrooms, but we have villages surrounding our piazza, which is also our spiral. Now, this layout allows for something which I think is very important, what we call a post-COVID spatial and digital strategy. Because in this school, it's a hybrid model, because in this school, students will learn how to learn. And the spaces are flexible because the whole building is actually a grid. So all walls, interior walls, can appear and disappear and allow for a huge flexibility in use, but also a flexibility for the students in a daily environment. And then they become aware. So having these different principles, as I explained in the beginning, allow also for students to be aware of where to learn, what to do, and what you actually can do digital, and when you need to be actually physical present. And we all experienced, having this many digital meetings recently, that actually one could say, there is certain things you can't do digital. So you are aware of it. And then it doesn't matter that you can't always do it, but you are aware of it, which is already the first point. And then you can activate and you start acting upon your circumstances. So this awareness of the differentiations and how you learn is extremely important. And having a clear system with differentiated spaces allow actually for creating a digital platform and a physical school where these two work simultaneously in a hybrid way, creating this post-COVID spatial and digital strategy. Now, we believe in hands-on learning, and we have Reggio Emilia as a base. So in this school, we have, surrounding our villages, actually, and embedded in our villages, we have what we call the ateliers. The ateliers allow for this hands-on sensory learning. They allow for our discovery path. We have 4 types of ateliers: body, image, shape, and planet. Body relates to the ateliers where you actually, for example, theater, or where you actually activate and you do things physically because you use your body to express yourself. Shape are all the ateliers and all the spaces where you create something in 3D. This can be the 3D printer, your robotics, but it can also be the wood atelier. Image are all the ateliers that allow you for working in 2D, developing actually, by the way, not only your motorics and your fine motorics, but also cognitive, because we know today that this development of the fine motorics is also part of our cognitive development. But this, of course, develops over ages. So when you get older, you're actually having, for example, a green screen new studio. And then planet ateliers all make us possible for us to investigate and discover things that relate to our planet. Everything from biology, from plants, for having small greenhouses, and the youngest ones can actually plan. But also when you get older, where we on the roof, for example, have windmills and solar panels, which are also part of the learning environment. So this brings us to the inside of our school. Here we are on the ground floor. And on the ground floor, we see the big piazza with the villages surrounding it, where we have nursery, reception villages, and KG and grade 1 village. We also find the ateliers here as represented in this diagram, as you see, embedded in a way in the villages. So the villages in itself have a jungle gym, for example, for challenging your body, and have for planet, breakout spaces into the exterior where children can both play and experiment. Then when we go 1 floor up, where we have the KG grade 1 village on this side of the building, and here we have K2 grade 2 and grade 3 villages. And here children have, again, a differentiated environment with homes. They can spill out into this differentiated environment where they have all the different ateliers they can interact and relate to, which are formed surrounding this kind of central, experimental spaces. And here again, I show a little diagram of the atelier. So what you see here is that you have, for example, here the homes, and then they spill out into this multitude, this landscape of fantastic ateliers where they can work with image, 2D, they can work with shape, 3D installations, as we just saw in the rendering, or they can work with, for example, body, as in the jungle gym over here, or in our outdoor here we have an outdoor terrace where they both have planet discovery, bio things, and what we call body. Because we also, and we have a, by the way, little detail, we have a slide. Then on the 3rd floor, another example is our middle years village. Now again, here children get a bit older. So here they slowly let go of this kind of fixed home space because they might have they move with teachers in different areas. And here, of course, the ateliers also develop, they become more advanced. We have, a textile workshop, we have ceramics, we have a 3D printer laboratory, and we have a lot of different hands-on environments that allow students to actually work with these. And this is not just for the arts, this is actually doing mathematics and using a 3D printer to actually investigate also mathematic problematics. This is a very integrated, multidisciplinary approach. So here we see this floor where we can see a little bit the vision of the different ateliers. A nice little detail, which I think personally is very nice over here, is where we have the whole art session, having a background as an artist, where we also, of course, have a white cube area where you can open up and you can actually experiment things. So we use a lot of tactics also coming from contemporary art, but embedded in the best of the arts and the best of the science into the learning environment. Now, you don't see Planet on this one because Planet is either downstairs where we have all the laboratories, the science laboratories, and on the rooftop, which brings us to the last part, because on the rooftop, we have a true park, not only for, just feeling good and being outside and playing, but also with science and sports activities where you can interact. So here we see the building from the outside. This is the other side where we have the entrance for the smallest one. And we have this fantastic, huge park on the top roof where we have both solar panels, not only for energy for the building, but also for the students to learn about solar energy, and a small windmill which they can use. That this is really active learning as part of the daily environment. Here we also find huge sports facilities, such as both basketball and football. But this is also on the downstairs. On the ground floor, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, on the ground floor over here, we placed a huge canteen. This canteen, which spills out in the beautiful piazza in the core of our building. The canteen is, of course, also a place for parents. We have what we call the VIP lounge, very important parents lounge, so they can be part of the environment, because the learning environment actually should also incorporate everybody involved. So we have certain parts of the building which we call common, where also people from outside can access. Now this is connected to the terrace on the outside, and here we see a little, kind of mood feeling about the terrace. The last part I have not mentioned is all the way down, because also downstairs we have our pool, our learners pool, and our sports facilities, not to forget, as part of this fantastic school environment. So summary, we have a traditional program overview, which we translated in a differentiated spatial, giving us the possibility to work different with a whole different programming, because the school of the future is not corridors and classrooms, thinking of school in a different way, creating a narrative based on the Pakistani landscape all the way through with the K2 mountain on the top, having the spiral of growth as the middle of the building, in being surrounded by a beautiful skin, allowing for the play of light, being protective, but also opening up to a multitude of different experiences and things to be discovered for children, both small and big. This, for me, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of my talk, because this is for TNS Beacon House 2.0, and I believe a true school of the future that soon will not be the future, but today.
Wow, Rosan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's been an extraordinary experience working with you over the last, well, I guess it's been about a year or so. So sometimes I wonder whether you're more of an educator or an architect, but it's great to see a fusion of the two. And I think that it's also, although you spoke about this in the presentation, but a very, very important point is that we started working pre-COVID, and then COVID happened. So this is, as you mentioned in your presentation, this is truly a post-COVID hybrid learning model, where we are anticipating, of course, we are not anticipating that there'll be more pandemics, hopefully, but we are anticipating scenarios where students may be working in and out of school for multiple reasons, by design, not necessarily based on necessity. Thank you very much. There are a couple of questions coming in from the audience, and we have a few minutes for those. I think that some of the parents of TNS Gulberg, I'm sure, are watching, and as are others. Somebody, of course, wants to know, when will the school be built? So I think that this is more a question for you than it is for me. So we do plan to start construction very soon. We are now at a stage where we expect the construction to begin soon, and we were originally hoping for the school to be ready in September 21, but we now know that's not going to be possible. But we're still trying to do the best that we can. Roseanne, do you want to add to that?
Well, yes, I mean, there are two things I would like to say. First one, to the post-COVID, because I think it's very interesting in a way that, the school, I mean, we changed it slightly, in our conversations once we, COVID, hit the world. But there are also certain things that actually continue. The whole idea that you learn how to learn and you have a hands-on landscape is the same. Now, to that extent, I also have to say that I believe that the future of learning, not necessarily because of a pandemic, will show us, I mean, the future of the world will show us that we will have a higher extent of things we will do digitally. And the whole idea, of being present, physically present in a workspace will be different. So I think that in this sense, it's actually very good when the school represents what will happen in real life in offices as well for so much for the children as for in that sense they have to learn it. It would be strange if what you experience at school does not resemble what your parents experience at work. So that's one thing. When the school will be built, I think that when it will be finished as soon as possible. I mean, we're in the middle of a very hectic and frenetic work process. So I mean, I don't really want to say, I think that's more up to you than it's up to me, actually, to answer. I mean, as soon as possible. We're in the middle of it, and we're, of course, a little bit limited also by restrictions we're also limited a little bit by restrictions because of COVID, but we hope that is soon over,
Thank you.
as it looks right now.
Rosan, we have a couple of other questions.
Please.
How can discipline be managed in a flexible school environment? And this also connects to something else, because in my opening session for this conference on Friday, I was talking to some students and teachers, and I mentioned to them that when you and I originally had our meeting in Lahore with Mr. Barnes and other people at the school, there was a lot of concern about the fact that we're not going to have traditional classrooms. And they wanted, even at that point, they wanted to know how discipline would be managed. And I don't know if this question, frankly, is coming from a teacher or a parent, but any quick response on that?
Well, yes, and I think it's a very good question, because in a way it actually taps into the core of what is difficult for a lot of people, and in the core of innovation of education for, I think, a lot of people. The two, one is discipline and the other one is about sound, and we can take that in consequence. I mean, the thing is this: you want children to not be disciplined because you tell them you want them to be disciplined, because you actually want to train them for self-discipline. You want them to actually, master their own learning on the consequences. Now, you cannot learn to be self-disciplined if you're never actually giving the chance to take this risk. That's the first thing. Second is that, in a way, it's not that the school we propose is a school without any kind of borders. It's a school that replaces one system with a different system, but it's a differentiated system. So it allows also for a kind of the acceptance that students learn in different ways. Now, the discipline, and this is actually a very interesting point, because it's a school which is based a little bit like the Montessori system says, it says like, look, children actually like to learn. And if you give them the environment where they thrive and they're interested, they will. And the truth is that actually children can be much more disciplined than we often give them. But when do children start to be not disciplined? Well, first of all, it's a question, of course, of culture. You have to learn, but this is also part of your school. The second part is that when they're really, really bored and not motivated. So the fact is that a lot of schools actually do not allow children to kind of, continue with doing something, so they keep on being excited. Now, when that is said, is that it's obvious that the school system like this fosters a different culture, but it's not one huge open spaces. As I don't know if you saw that, because of course I have very short time to show everything, but you have like differentiated spaces where children move in different ways. And of course, then when you have a child that, another example is that, for example, behaves badly, other children and the teacher will tell the child like, hey, you're behaving badly, and they will learn. But that is actually a normal learning curve. It's, for example, what we see in the schools we have done often is that we see that, for example, we have this kind of spaces of concentration, and everybody knows that that's where you go when you want to focus. And then we see, for example, a child that is curling up in a little cave and is like reading a book, and then the other one comes and is speaking loud just outside. And then everybody surrounding tells, hey, shh, you're in the cave zone, So it becomes kind of obvious that here you're focused, and no, you don't disturb the others. So in that sense, school is also a machine of social learning. Now, when we talk about learning social skills, how are you supposed to learn the social skills? Well, there's always somebody else telling you how to behave, and you never actually get to, behave yourself. So this is part of the learning system. So what I'm trying to say is that the school is just different. Yeah, it's not without discipline. It's a different kind of discipline, and it slowly trains you for self-discipline, which I think is actually a very important thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that all the teachers out there will agree with you. I think that one of the great things with this school is that it's not just a new building. We're also hoping that with it we can take TNS itself to its 2.0 level in terms of experiential learning, project-based learning, resumelia, and the social, behavioral, emotional kind of competencies that we hope to develop. Somebody is asking, although you did touch upon this, how green will the building be? And my one thing on this before I go to you is that I know that we were extremely conscious about not wanting to cut down any of the trees that were already on that piece of land. But yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's two types of green, or three actually, because there's sustainability and there's literally green, meaning nature. Yeah. So we've added huge amounts of terraces and outdoor spaces, and we kept everything open we could on the ground floor, also preserving the trees we could that are on the side of the rim, and actually not many trees in the middle because there's an old building over there right now. So we tried to preserve as much of the trees that are there, and we also added actually a lot of outdoor environments. So all students have access to an outdoor environment, all of them actually from the different villages in all the different levels they have terraces, and then we have added a huge actually rooftop terrace. Now this is what comes to the access to green on the outside. Then the other part of it is, or partially outside. And the other part of course of green is what we talk about sustainability. Now sustainability, when you come to building and architectural design, the idea is that this building should be as sustainable as possible, but we're still with the local architects investigating things because not everything is as easy. But for example, we were going to have a lot of solar energy panels and things like doing a lot of climate control of the building as well, with the skin of the building, things like that. So there are architectural parts of it which are green. Then on top of that, there's also another part, and which I think is very important, which we call the sustainability as integrated as part of the learning environment. And in this sense, we want children not only to see sustainability as a kind of an abstraction that kind of happens to you and you have a passive building. No, we want actually children. That's why we have the whole concept with planet ateliers. We want children to understand, the planet they're part of and what sustainability actually means. Yeah, that's why we have a lot of learning facilities inside of the school that allows for children to actually think, reflect, and experiment on the topic of sustainability, as in green sustainability. For example, we have, as I gave the examples on the rooftop with the different energy things, which are part of the learning environment. But we also have a lot of bio labs. We want small children to understand. We have spaces where they can actually plant plants. We have greenhouses embedded, and so on and so forth. We also have things that we want them to be conscious about their resources, about the trash inside of the building. So we kind of build in a lot of small layers of consciousness about, sustainability, which is not always the same as green when people ask about green. But we think that this is a very green building in the sense that you have terraces and outdoor environments.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a great building, or it will be, inshallah. We're also working very closely with a solar power company to integrate solar energy into the property, and we want students to be kind of aware of how that whole thing works. So yeah, you're right, it will be a green in both senses of the word. Somebody has added the comment that there's a local architect who's also involved, which is very important because we need the local architect to help us understand, local issues, of which, as you know, there are plenty. So, Rosan, there's one last question which somebody is asking. Well, actually, there are quite a few, but we only have time for one last because we have to close at 2 p.m. My time, and I think 10 a.m. yours. Is how will technology be integrated into the design? My quick answer to this is seamlessly, but I don't know if you want to give a quick answer.
I think that technology is built into the design in several ways. I mean, I will leave the boring thing out about the maintenance of the building and stuff like that. I mean, for the students' experience, the technology will be built into the building because they, for example, can work with what I said before, the solar energy and the wind energy and things like that. But apart and 3D printers, we have a maker's lab and 3D printers, things like that. They can experiment. But apart from that, it's also about the digital platform, how the learning spaces actually evolve both physically and digitally. So there is a connection in between what you do, because the biggest change that actually digital technology has made us for architecture is that everybody has a portable sort of device and moves around. That completely changed the entire way of layout of buildings. So they have a lot of different ways. This is the fast answer to interact. We have also film studios. We have a lot of things that to interact with digital technology. I mean, from a practical point of view in the building, but there is also the fact that they can actually, we have we also have a digital school. We don't only build a physical school. There's also a digital school behind it, and a way of interacting in between the two.
Yeah,
This is a
no,
short answer.
absolutely. I think that it should also be like a smart building in terms of the way in which it is designed. So, Rosan, this brings us to the end of this presentation and brief Q&A session. Once again, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure working with you. I hope that you can physically visit Lahore once again very soon.
I
And
hope so too.
each time I see your presentation, it makes me wish that I could go back to school. But sadly, I don't have a time machine. But I'm happy at least that at least one of my kids is going to be studying in this school. So I hope that she loves it as much as you and I obviously do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. And please continue watching other sessions on the School of Tomorrow conference, which ends today on Sunday. Thank you, Rosan. And
Thank you, Kasim.